Hello, and a warm welcome to our show, Love Athletics. In this program, we bring you the latest highlights from our sport with expert input from different continental areas. And we're delighted to have back with us as a guest Kenyan journalist Mutwiri Mutuota.
Thank you very
Hello,
much.
Mutwiri.
I'm fine,
Lovely
thank
to see
you.
you, and a big thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you. So what a fortnight it's been. We've seen great athletics action, both indoors on the roads in racewalk and, of course, the World Cross. So 3 indoor world records and a host of area records were set. And we'll open the show by highlighting these extraordinary performances. The first world record of the fortnight was set on 10 February in the Liévin World Indoor Tour meeting by 3,000 meter steeplechase multi-medalist Lamecha Girma. The Ethiopian, who regularly competes indoors over 3,000 flat, set a stunning 7:23.81 mark to break the record of which belonged to Kenya's Daniel Komen and had stood for 25 years. Spain's Mohamed Katir was not far behind, clocking 7:24.68, also under Komen's previous record, to set a European indoor record, destroying the previous continental best by over 6 seconds. A week later, on 18 February, in Pocatello, Idaho, USA, double Olympic champion and reigning world champion Ryan Krauser, who had started his season with an excellent 22:58 at the Millrose Games, improved his own world record a week later with a massive 23:38, which is 1 centimeter longer than his own outdoor world record. Krauser has now thrown over 23 meters in 7 competitions in his career. Amazing. The final world indoor record broken in the last fortnight came from the Netherlands' amazing Femke Bol, who on 19 February at the Dutch Indoor Championships broke the oldest world indoor record, clocking 49:26 in the 400 meters, to smash a mark that had stood for over 40 years, set by the great Jarmila Kratochvilova back in 1982. The 400-meter hurdle specialist had dipped under 50 seconds for the first time the previous week and in Metz, and at the start of the month had set a world indoor best over 500 meters in Boston. It'll be really exciting to see what Femke will do in the upcoming European indoors. A series of area indoor records have also been set by US athletes. A week after setting an area indoor record over 3,000 meters, Inform Yared Nuguse also improved the continental best over the mile at the Millrose Games, clocking 3:47.38 and climbing to number 2 in the all-time list, overtaking the great Hisham El Gerouj. And in passing, he also improved the area record for the 1,500 meters, clocking 3:33.22. An excellent month of February for Nuguse. US ladies also signed excellent performances, starting with Alicia Monson, who also at the Millrose Games on 11 February improved the area indoor record over 3,000 meters, clocking 8:25.05 to become the 6th best athlete of all time, behind 5 Ethiopians. The following week at the US Indoor Championships, combined eventer Anna Hall and sprinter Aliyah Hobbs both climbed to number 2 in the all-time list while setting continental records. On 16 February, outdoor heptathlon bronze medalist Anna Hall compiled a pentathlon total of 5,004 points, setting indoor PBs on the 60 meters hurdles, long jump, and an outdoor PB of 1 meter 91 in the high jump. She became only the third athlete to total over 5,000 points and was just 9 points shy of the world indoor record. And for good measure, the multi-talented Hall also won the 400-meter titles the following day. On 18 February, it was Aaliyah Hobbs' turn to shine. 3 weeks after first dipping under 7 seconds in the 60 meters, Hobbs progressed to 6:94, improving the continental best set by the great Gail Devers back in 1993, and coming within 200ths of the world indoor record, which Irina Privalova had set in 1993 and equaled in 1995. So Mutwiri, what an amazing indoor season we've had in the first 2 months of 2023. What was your favorite indoor athletics moment so far this year?
So this year, we have to mention Lamecha and what he did, breaking a record that has stood for 25 years. You know, Daniel Komen is not somebody who sets records that are easily broken. He still holds the 3,000-meter outdoor world record that has also stood for almost 3 decades. So to see Ramecha, who we know here for what he's done in steeplechase, even when he came here as a junior and took and medaled in the steeplechase, he's one of the persons who have really illuminated the indoor season. This year, and having started like that, we are expecting to see maybe when we go to the summer for the World Championships, maybe in Budapest, he's getting into the good shape to do something there as well. I can't also fail to mention Nogusa. He's been in absolute form even as recently as Wednesday. He bet the home favorite Ater in Madrid. So it means that having bubbled under the surface last year and last year but won in the collegiate leagues in America, he's now coming to his own, and this could be one of his years. And maybe he'll follow in the footsteps of the likes of St. Louis and also other American middle distance runners who've been nicking medals at the World Championships in recent years. Of course, we can't forget Ball. That was absolutely fantastic from her. The way she ran, the way she attacked from the front, it was just a joy to watch. And this is someone else who we could also see from Netherlands, maybe taking over from the likes of Daphne Schippers and Sifan Hassan as also the poster girls of Dutch athletics. So it's been quite intriguing season in the indoors. Maybe because of the way the program has been put back to back as a result of the pandemic, we are seeing athletes continue training and getting early performances in the early season, and all these boys are down well for what is coming up when the outdoor season takes in.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Now, unlike Ethiopian athletes, Kenyans are far less likely to compete indoors. For example, 1,500-meter double Olympic and world champion Faith Kipyegon sometimes runs cross-country races in winter, but she's never competed indoors. And Daniel Komen was the only Kenyan athlete to boast a world indoor record. So why is it that Kenyan athletes rarely run on the indoor circuit?
When you look at the history of the World Indoor Championships, you only find that only 10 Kenyans have won gold medals, which compared to the outdoors, it's quite a very small ratio comparing that our rivals Ethiopia have won 31 gold medals on the indoor tracks. So the reason, first of all, is Kenyans don't like cold weather. It's just natural. Like right now, the sun is crazy here in Nairobi, and most of our athletes don't like training or running in cold weather. We even had the people like the great Rudisha also failing to perform when there is a bit of wetness. So it's a thing that we are not suited for colder or cooler weather running, even all the way up to the marathon. That is why maybe we perform better when we have temperatures from between 19 to 25, 19 to absolute to the 30s. So the fact that the indoor season falls in the winter across Europe, and we are more suited to run during the summer, that makes one of the reasons why Kenyan athletes don't like the indoors. The other reason is most of them don't like running on the tapered track, which the indoor tracks, mostly some of them are tapered towards the end, and the way the stride movement and the stride the stride depth of the Kenyan runner. They don't like running as if they are tapering. They like running most when it is flat out. So that's another thing that also affects the fact that most Kenyans don't prefer indoor running. The other thing maybe is indoor running is not as big here as the outdoor running because most of us try, for example, starting running at this particular time. We have the Athletics Kenya holding their second track and field meeting that has started today on Friday, the 24th in Nairobi. So most of them will not train to run during the winter. They start training to start running from around this part of the year all the way to May, June, and September when the outdoor season closes. So that is maybe one of the three reasons why Kenyan athletes will not be very busy indoors as opposed to outdoors.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Let's check now the best results of the past fortnight, starting, of course, with indoor performances. So among the men, in the 60 meters, Trayvon Bromell raced to 6:42 in Clemson on 10 February, moving to equal number 6 on the all-time lists. Then really interesting results, I think, on 200 meters, 2020 by Tarsis Gracious Orogot of Uganda, who moves into equal 8th on the all-time list. And the 20-year-old was 4th at the World Under-20 Championships in 2021. So definitely one to watch out for. In Liévin, on the 1500, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, 3:32.38. On Milrose Games, as we saw, Yared Nuguse setting the area record on the mile, and in passing also in the 1500. And on 1500, Nuguse also boasts the third time of the year with 3:33.69, which he set in Madrid days later over another in-form athlete, Spain's Mohamed Khatir. Over the mile, as we saw, Nuguse, then it was an excellent race in New York, but also in Boston. So there are 5 really good marks over these 2 races, with Britain's Neil Gurley, Germany's Amos Bartelsmeyer in Boston, Anaïs Essayi of Morocco, and Ollie Hoare also in New York. So great middle distance racing so far. La Mecha, as we saw, world record in Liévin, followed by Mohamed Khatir. In Boston, at the beginning of the month, Yared Nuguse and Sam Atkin had performed really, really well. Over 5,000, the marks set by William Kincaid and Joe Klecker remain unchallenged. They were absolutely top marks. In the high jump, we have Danil Lysenko still topping the lists with the 2:38 he set at the end of January. In pole vault, Mondo Duplantis had started the month with 6 meters 10. Then he cleared 6 meters 6 in Berlin and 6:01 in Liévin, where he stopped the competition after feeling cramps. And unfortunately, Mondo will not be at the World Indoors, at the European Indoors. In the shot put, as we saw, fabulous record by Ryan Krauser, 23:38, after the 22:58, which he had set a week earlier. Among the women, the most interesting marks are, as we saw, the 60 meters by Alia Hobbs. In the 200 meters, Favor Ofili of Nigeria improved to 22:36. Over 300 meters, Abby Steiner, 35:54. 400 meter Femke Bol's world record. Over 1500, Gudaf Segai of Ethiopia in Liévin improved to 3:57.47, and she also has the second best mark of the season, which she had set in Torun, Poland. On the mile, in that occasion, the 1500 mark was in passing because Gudaf had set a very good mark on the mile. 3,000, as we saw, your NACAC record by Alicia Monson. High jump, Jaroslava Maguchik improved to 2 meters 02, and Anna Hall 5,004 points in the pentathlon. So let's move now to cross country. The World Cross Country Championships took place at the end of last week in Australia. But before we look at this event, let's hear from Kenenisa Bekele, the most titled athlete in this competition, with 12 individual gold medals, including one in the under-20 race. Kenenisa's video arrived just after we had published the Athletics History Live program with Mark Butler. So let's hear now from the great Ethiopian why he loved this event and what are his favorite memories.
Yeah. So how was the cross country special for you?
Cross country is my favorite and special race. I made more successful results over cross country, so it was so special. It was my start also.
What's your favorite memory among the many cross country triumphs and why?
Of course, some special races in cross country. One time I was really struggling with my personal things, so I won double. That was in St. James cross country, and that was my special race. And the others were the really strong competitor in Switzerland. Cross country was special.
Who you believe is your biggest competitor?
My biggest competitor is, of course, Ethiopians and Kenyans athletes, as well Eritrean.
So let's focus now on this year's edition of the World Cross, starting with the mixed relay, where Kenya regained the title they had won in the first edition in 2017 and successively ceded to arch rivals Ethiopia. Ethiopia were runner-up, while bronze went to home country Australia, whose second runner, Jessica Hull, had passed the baton in first place after an excellent leg run in 5:47, a time which was only bettered in the first leg run by the men by two male athletes and equaled by her compatriot Ollie Hoare. Hull's time was 11 seconds faster than the fastest women. The under 20 women's race title went to Ethiopia's unheralded 17-year-old Senayet Getachew, who started conservatively in 10th place and gradually worked her way up the field. She was followed across the line by her compatriot, world under 20 5,000 meter champion Medina Asa, and Kenya's Pamela Kosgei in a close race where a group of 7 athletes had completed 2 of the 3 laps within 1 second, and the top 6 runners all finished within 25 seconds. And Senayet Getachew also led Ethiopia to its only team gold. The men's under 20 race, the title returned to Kenya after 12 years as Ishmael Kipkurui led his compatriot Reynold Kipkorir Cheruyot over the line ahead of Ethiopia's Boki Diriba in a tight finish where the 3 medalists finished within 2 seconds of each other. And Uganda's Dan Kibet, who had led a large part of the race but faded in the final stages, was just another 5 seconds behind. Kenya also took back team gold, which had eluded it in 3 of the 4 last editions, including the last 2. The senior race saw drama, confirmations, and upsets. One of the pre-race favorites, Letzenbet Gidey had started in the pack for much of the race before kicking decisively in the last lap to pass Kenya's Beatrice Chebet, the reigning under-20 champion, who had been in the top 3 runners all the way, to open a gap of almost 6 seconds. However, Letzenbet started to fade with 60 meters to go and could be seen repeatedly checking behind her in the final stages of the race before collapsing from exhaustion some 20-30 meters before the finish line, just as Beatrice Chebet sailed past her. The Ethiopian was helped to her feet by her coach and managed to cross the line in 4th, but was later disqualified for external assistance. Silver went to Ethiopia's Tsiga Gebreselama, who was also on the podium in the under-20 race in the previous edition, followed by Kenya's Agnes Ngetich. 19-year-old Grace Loiboch Nawouna, the surprise winner of the Kenyan trials, finished in 4th, confirming her talent, as did another 19-year-old, Priska Kesanga of Uganda, who closed in 7th place, the best placing for her country. The senior men's race saw a star-studded field with a repeat victory and 2 medals for Uganda, as in the last edition, but the order changed, with Jacob Kiplimo taking top spoils over Ethiopia's Berihu Aregawi. Kiplimo, the 2017 World Under-20 cross champion on home soil and 2019 silver medalist in the senior race when aged just 18, has now added senior world championship gold to his 2020 World Half Marathon title and his 2021 World Half Marathon record, and he's only 22 years old. 2019 champion Joshua Cheptegei took bronze, finishing neck and neck with double world cross-country champion Jeffrey Kamworor, who was followed home by 3 compatriots, allowing Kenya to clinch team gold. So Mutwiri, a fabulous team effort on the part of the Kenyan runners, who lost only 1 title.
Yeah, it was great from Kenya, noticing that the last World Cross that was in Denmark, they had not prepared as much as they did this time around because they were in camp for 1 month prior to them traveling to, actually it was more than 1 month prior to traveling to Australia. And you could see the rewards having kept the team together for so long and so to get them preparing, because the entry requirements in Australia meant the team selection had to be done as early as December. So that gave the team enough time to gel, and you could see what happened when it came, for example, for the junior men. That's a title that eluded Kenya for so many years. Also, the junior women did their best, but we have to give the props to the Ethiopians. They were much better prepared in that. As for the senior men, at least we don't have the talent coming through the way it has been coming through in many years. To see Geoffrey, for example, now running in his 5th World Cross since he started running junior in Punta Umbria in 2011, knowing that the World Cross nowadays is being staggered to 2 years, and of course it took some 3 years after the pandemic came in. So it was a commendable performance from Kenya, but we also have to highlight also the fact that Australia did very well in the mixed series, getting that bronze medal. It's always good when a country hosts an event and to see some of their athletes in the podium. It was one of the fantastic running, especially by Hall, as you pointed out. The other thing we can maybe look at the World Cross and why it will be remembered is what happened between Beatrice Chebet and Letzenbet Gidey. We all knew, or we all expected Gidey would take it because right now she's joined the training team with Eliud Kipchoge in the double N running, and they are doing it even here in Kenya. So even the Kenyans themselves, we knew that this was her race to lose. And when she took off, people are like, it's okay, it's curtains, we can be okay with the team gold medal. But around the 600 meters, 700 meters to go, you could see she was uneasy, and it was quite a madcap ending to the race. It added so much to entertainment value, but as a human being, you have to feel sorry for her and all the work she put in, only to see her hopes end when the rain is within sight. So that added to the excitement of the World Cross and the excitement of the race. But we hope that Resenabet will pick herself up and have a stronger season in the tracks outdoors or maybe in the roads.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Now, I would also like to highlight the performance of the athlete refugee team in the mixed relay. They finished 13th out of 15 teams. And in particular, their last runner, Angelina Nadailo Halit, had another good performance after being the surprise winner of the European Champion Club's cross on 5 February. Angelina's time was the 10th in the final leg, only 2 seconds slower than Morocco's last runner and faster than the finishing runners from Spain, China, and New Zealand. Well done, Angelina. Let's check the medal table. So 6 golds for Uganda, including 4 of the 5 team golds. Ethiopia, 1 team gold and the under 20 women, total of 10 medals, but lots of second places. Uganda, team bronze in both senior and men's women's race, as well as the gold and bronze in the men's senior race. The US team managed 2 bronze medals in the 2 under 20 races, and Australia, as we saw, bronze in the mixed relay. Now, as we conclude the analysis of the World Cross, there's 3 considerations I'd like to make. And the first thing I find interesting is that the 2 athletes who dominated the World Cross Tour in the previous edition and are again leading this season, albeit sharing the first spot, that is Burundi's Rodrigue Quizera, who had 4 victories on the tour this season, and Eritrea's Rahel Daniel, who won all 3 events she took part in 2023. They were never in play for medals in Bathurst. Quizera had a better showing, finishing a creditable 8th, while Rahel Daniel faded badly in the second part of the race to finish in 57th spot. Now, Mutwiri, I think this goes to show what a tough race is the World Cross, as practically all the world's best distance runners take part, which is not the case for the Cross Tour, as many of the top runners don't participate, preferring either to compete on road races or focusing on national events.
Well, it just goes to show that on the circuit, the cross-country circuit needs to maybe market itself a bit better or offer better incentives to these runners, because if you take the time that these people are involved in training and camping and also having to come back from the end of the outdoor season, we need to have the cross-country tour giving more incentives so that you can have maybe the bigger performers in those events coming to the World Cross and dominating as well. Also, it could also be a case of choice. If I speak for Kenyan athletes, for example, most of them are not fond of traveling too much when it comes to the early part of the year, because like we mentioned earlier, their focus is more on the outdoors and also the spring road events and maybe when you go to the autumn road events. So I think we need to maybe either make the cross tour have fewer events that are high quality, that will attract high quality fields, or give better incentives to these runners, because as we see now, the road races and mostly the road races are offering much more for them to take home, knowing that also this is a career and this is a profession. So I think it's time we thought of condensing the cross-country tour to have a high quality meetings like the way we have high quality indoor meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. I agree something needs to be done.
Yes.
And it's also mainly Europe-based athletes who participate, both Rodrigue Quizera, Rahel Daniel, they're based in Europe. The Ugandans, yes. We haven't seen them much this year, the Ayekos, who compete on the tour. They're also based in Europe. So that doesn't really give for a very global world cross tour.
Exactly. And even if you look at the cross itself, we need to. I was speaking to Tergat before he traveled to Australia about what needs to be done in the cross country, and he was remarking that maybe it's time we give it to the runners themselves the importance of running in the cross country, where before you prepare for the track and field and also the roads later on in the year. I think also the importance of cross country is not being emphasized enough to this current generation of athletes because we have seen most of those who came before the likes of Kenenisa, Tergat himself, and we also had all the big athletes, Hisham and all those people. They used to take cross-country running very important before we go to the outdoor season. So I think also there is need to inform or to tell the athletes who are competing in the current generation the importance of why cross-country is good to get enough mileage on their legs so that you can see better performances outdoors.
Thank you. Now, going back to Bathurst, I think we also need to talk about the attendance because it's true that several countries from Oceania were participating for the first time, but several European countries chose not to travel to Australia for the one-day event. And the championships were scheduled 5 weeks earlier than the traditional date at the end of March, which was probably a very bad date for European athletes, as many of them were either competing in the national indoor championships ahead of the European championships taking place 3 weeks later. So two countries which had so far taken part in every single edition of the World Cross, France and Italy, chose not to travel to Australia, while some other countries sent B squads, which is a shame because I think it devalues the event. Although, of course, it's true that European countries are no longer a major force in cross country. In general, the number of participating countries is down, with 48 countries taking part in Bathurst, while numbers had always been between 51 and 68 in the period from 1990 to 2019, except for an exceptional low of 41 countries in 2013 and back up to 58, 59 in the last two editions. 3 editions in the early 2000s had seen over 70 countries. So participation figures were a little bit low. And also, I think some countries I know did not get their visas in time. For example, Brazil and Peru. Mutwiri, did African countries have any visa issues?
Yes, you did. It was not widely reported, but especially the junior team and the senior women's team did not have the full complement of 6 because there were visa issues. Some of them were coming back questioning the details that were filled in, and by the time all that was resolved, it was too late for them to join the rest of their teammates. So maybe what we should be looking at is when countries bid to host these events, they should also find a way of relaxing entry rules because sometimes you might have somebody requiring. Maybe there was I think in the junior women's team, one of the athletes who was identified or made or rather selected or pre-selected for Bathurst was injured and they could not replace them. And then when they tried to rush through the other one, they could not get the visa in time. So we should also try to see when countries are given these events to host, where they make the entry rules or maybe relax them for the sake of the event itself. The other thing maybe we should be looking at is the last 2 or 3 years, the sporting calendars everywhere have been messed about because of the period it took to recover from the pandemic as the world is trying to get back to normal again. So there is some scheduling conflicts we've seen in events, not only in athletics, but other sports as well, which you might not get into so much, but those is also affecting. But my concern when it comes to the cross country is we are trying to get as many hosts as possible. We are trying to get many area regions involved in hosting the cross country, Oceania, Africa, Europe, America, and all that. But maybe we are not trying to consider how convenient it would be knowing that this cross country is held at the beginning of the year to get as many people as possible to participate or many nations as possible to participate. So sometimes we should try to figure out, for example, in the past, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the participant numbers were great because we didn't have people requiring to travel for so long to get to some of these events, and then there were no scheduling conflicts with other events. So I think when it comes to the World Cross, we should try to see how best to suit it and how best we can get as many numbers as possible. But that is an issue of organizers. It's an issue of the governing body to figure out why and how to attract many countries to the World Cross, especially now that it's biennial. You'd expect a biennial cross country to attract more nations than when it was every year. So I think also the marketing aspect of it is not being done to the level it should be. And again, as we had said earlier, the emphasis on why cross country is important to athletics as a sport. And those are the things that we need to consider moving forward.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Now, final consideration on Bathurst. I think we need to have a look at the weather conditions, because combined with a very tough course, this proved too much for some even very experienced athletes. The first race was held with 36 degrees centigrade, and the next three with 35 degrees. The weather only really cooled off for the senior men's race as a storm was gathering and temperatures dropped sharply by 10 degrees. So 2 athletes collapsed in the final stages of their race. As we saw, Letsenbet Gidey crumpled some 20 meters before the finish line as she was still marginally leading. And in the men's under 20 race, Japan's Hiroto Yoshioka, who had been in the top 20 for most of the race, suffered a similar fate, collapsing only 5 meters before the finish line. He managed to sit up and tried to drag himself over the finish, pushing with his arms, but finally gave up just 1 meter from crossing the line. That was really heartbreaking. I've never seen anything like this in 18 editions of the World Cross that I covered. Even in the heat of Mombasa 2007, where some of the junior girls had arrived looking rather dazed, but I don't remember athletes collapsing so spectacularly. Mutwiri, what do you think about the conditions of the World Cross?
First things first, in the few days leading to the World Cross, once our team got there are so many forums that maybe on WhatsApp Medium that discuss athletics, and one of the things was that they were saying this course is the most difficult course they've ever encountered in all those years. And you see the course itself was punishing enough. As far as the weather is concerned, I think the difference perhaps between Bathurst and Mombasa is Mombasa being close to the sea, or rather next to the sea, there was a breeze that was keeping these athletes cool as they were running around the course, as much as hot as it was. But in Bathurst, you could see the conditions were more, the humidity was rather high, and this took its toll on the athletes. All in all, I think I have struggled to remember what a difficult course as the one that was in Australia. And credit to them, they made it as difficult as possible, and that is what cross-country running is all about, endurance and speed, and a combination of the both. But Bathurst has to go down. Even when they came back, they were saying they have never seen anything, or rather competed in any course as difficult as that. So yes, for the weather being hot, it favored some of the competitors, like I pointed before. Kenyans like hot weather or warm weather, they tend to perform better. But at least when it comes to the other conditions, it was very difficult for the athletes out there, and you can only feel sorry for them for what they had to endure, but that is the competition, and that's why sometimes you have to have such difficult courses so that you can test the limits of human endurance.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Now, I know the trend in world athletics is to make cross-country courses more challenging, and already the 219 course in Aarhus was quite tough, but I think they need to look at the weather conditions because, expected in the country, because Aarhus was rather cold, but you combine a super tough course with 36 degrees, that's a bit too much.
Yeah, it was a bit too much, yes. And I felt sorry, especially for the Japanese athlete and also the Letsenbet, as we have said there. But, well, maybe we should consider these things, maybe even having a test event before the World Cross itself, Like what we did here in Mombasa, we had a test event, the national championship. This time they were held in Mombasa, I think a month before the World Cross. So it gave those organizers, if I remember the time, it gave the organizers time to see what the conditions the runners would experience. And I remember there were a few people invited from outside Kenya. And that, for example, informs why the events were switched to the afternoon, late afternoon, because they had been scheduled to start late in the early in the morning when the Mombasa cross country first initial program came out. So I think the fact that the Bathurst coast was not tested before the actual event is maybe one of the oversights, and maybe in future we should be doing that.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Let's look now at the best outdoor marks, starting with the men's events. In a fortnight full of indoor world and area records, there was also an outdoor area record for France's Jimmy Gressier, who signed the European record over 5 kilometers road race in Monaco on 12 February, clocking 13 minutes 12, ahead of former athlete refugee team member Dominique Loquignomo Lobalu, 13:24, who continues to shine on the international scene and to set PB after PB. Let's take a look at the top outdoor marks, starting with the men. In the shot put, Tom Walsh improved to 21 meters 80. Also in throwing events, discus throw, 68-14 for Jamaica's Travis Milke. The 10 kilometers race in Valencia remains among the very top marks. In the half marathon, we have had new performances. Ras Al Khaimah with Bernard Kibet Koech, 58:45, followed closely by Daniel Mateco for 58:49. And the following day in Barcelona, Charles Kirui Langat with 58:63. So another good result for Langat on Spanish roads. The marathon standings have also improved with a great mark by Ethiopia's Gadisa Shumi, 2 hours 04:59 in Sevilla, leading two compatriots, Kebede Tulu and Makwant Ayene. In racewalk, 20-kilometer racewalk, Japan's Koki Ikeda, 1:18:36, and over 35 kilometers racewalk, Sergei Korzenikov of Russia on 13 February with 2 hours 24:19 clocked the 5th best mark of all time. Let's check now the best outdoor marks for women. 300 meters, really interesting. Beatrice Masilingi, 34:60. Now, we don't make record screens for spurious different distances like the 300, but this is an African record for Masilingi, and it was her first race this year. Second mark of all time, behind Shawnee Miller-Weibo. 10K in Valencia remains the top race for women outdoor this year. In the half marathon, as for the men, Barcelona and Ras Al Khaimah provided some very good performances. In Barcelona, Irene Jepchumba Kimais, 1:04:34, and just ahead of Joycelyn Jepkoske, 1:04:46, while in Ras Al Khaimah the day before, Helen Obiri clocked 1:05:05. And she had a dominant race, 44 seconds ahead of the runner-up, who was reigning marathon world champion, Gotitom Gebreselassie. So Kenyan doubles in the half marathons, both in Ras Al Khaimah and in Barcelona. In the marathon, Hitomi Niya's mark in Houston remains the best of 2023, but Jacqueline Chelal with 2 hours 20:29 in Sevilla had a really good performance. And again, Russian athlete on the 35 kilometers race walk, Claudia Afanasieva, 2 hours 40:27 for the 8th best mark of all time. Now, Mutwiri, what was your favorite outdoor moment of 2023 on road races and stadium events?
Well, when it comes to stadium events, I have to go with Masilingi. She's been such an inspirational story since she came to prominence in 2019. She's only 19, and she's run the second fastest time, although the rarely competed distance of 300 meters, behind none other than Shoina Miller. When you have such a person to follow in a list, it means you are going there. And having had her season interrupted by injury last year, only God knows what she would have come to do if she had gone to Oregon, for example. And she's one of the people you expect to come out strongly in the few years to come, and maybe the best thing out of Namibia since Frankie Fredericks the Great. Maybe on the roads, I would say the performance of Helen Obiri. Remember, this is a lady who started running from 800 meters pre-amateur, then started competing professionally in 1500 meters, and she has gone all the way up to the roads. And you have this feeling that she's in line for a medal in the half marathon or the marathon in the coming years. And she represents what the athletics used to be back in the day. You start from the track and then slowly graduate to the road, and then in between you have the cross country there. Because nowadays you see a lot of people coming straight to the roads once they get their professional badges in the sport. So it's a great thing to see that she's continues holding how athletics should be, or what we were taught athletics is from way back, and good credit to her. And maybe mentioning we should look out for Shumir from Ethiopia. I looked at the way he ran when he did in Sevilla, and something about him speaks of the kind of Ethiopian runners of the old, like the Haile Gebrselassie and people like Shihin and all that. So there's something about him that is going to be something to look forward to when the year comes or progresses to the outdoor. So Shumir is another highlight maybe from what has been happening outdoors.
Thank you, Mutwiri. On my side, I would like to highlight two performances which are not among the very best of the fortnight, but which are impressive. And both were achieved in the Sevilla Marathon on 19 February. On the women's side, Turkish runner Yayla Günen, a multiple national champion on track, set a PB of 2 hours 29:10 when closing in 15th place. Yayla, who competed just 12 days after the terrible earthquake which hit her country, lives in the southern city of Diyarbakir, which is one of the 10 heavily affected provinces. After the race, she declared, "I would be the happiest person if my performance could give my people a smile and some hope, even for just an instant, after the terrible catastrophe we are facing." Congratulations, Yayla Günen, a fantastic example of resilience in adversity. On the men's side, athlete refugee team member Tahlowini Gebriyesov improved his PB to 2 hours 09:00 to finish 19th, earning a qualification spot for the World Championships in Budapest. Tahlowini had achieved a similar exploit in March 2021 when he became the first athlete refugee to qualify for a major global event, clocking 2:10:55 to earn a spot on the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Congratulations, Tahlowini. Let's highlight now some cool athletics news. Congratulations to decathletes Niklas Kaul and Simon Ehammer, who were awarded the 2022 Fair Play Award for German sports. The jury was impressed with their way to transform competitions against each other into a togetherness, including at the 2022 European Championships. It was indeed a pleasure to see the spirit with which the two competed in Munich. And I also remember another great image there involving a hammer. The Swiss decathlete had been leading the year's top lists in the long jump with 8:45, but at the European Championships, he focused on his specialist combined events. The long jump final took place at the same time as the second day of the decathlon, and de Hammer, while celebrating his silver medal, stopped by the long jump pit to congratulate Miltiadis Tedoglu, who had just won gold and overtaken him in the top list by 7 centimeters. Brilliant images of sport. And congratulations also to Mondo Duplantis, Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price, and Sydney McLaughlin, who are among the 6 athletes shortlisted respectively for the Laureus Sports Awards Male and Female Sportsperson of the Year. After Mondo and Sydney set world records and Shelley-Ann clinched her 5th world title over the 100 meters for the first time in an individual women's event. Congratulations also to Nigeria's Tobi Amusan, who took the 100 meters hurdles world record in the semifinal before taking gold at the World Championships last summer, and was among 6 athletes and teams nominated in the Breakthrough of the Year category. And finally, congratulations to Norway's Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who was nominated in the comeback category for bouncing back after his 1,500 meter defeat in Oregon to take 5,000 meter gold. Nominations are based on votes by more than 1,400 journalists who compose the global media nominations panel, and the final judging to determine the winners is by the 71 members of the Laureus World Sports Academy, who are all Olympic champions, world record holders, and top athletes of their times, making this award truly unique. Unfortunately, now we have some sad news, as in the last fortnight, several protagonists of our sport have left us, including 3 top athletes who passed away prematurely. On the night between 13 and 14 February, Senegalese jumper Ken Ndoye passed away aged 44 after a long illness. Ndoye had won her first continental medals at the African Championships in 1996, with gold in triple jump and bronze in long jump, and her last at the All Africa Games in 2011 with a silver in the triple jump. And this in an area in which there were very talented triple jumpers in Africa, Cameroon's Françoise Mbango, Sudan's Cuban-born Yamile Aldama, and Algeria's Baya Rahouli, boasting PBs respectively of 15:39, 15:28, and 14:98. The Senegalese star had a PB of 15 meters. On the world scene, Ndoye took bronze into the 2003 World Indoors and was 6th at the World Championships in 2005. She was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, a degenerative illness which cut short her career in 2012. Rest in peace, Ken. On 16 February, German pole vaulter Tim Lobinger passed away aged 50 after a long illness. He was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia in 2017 and seemed to have recovered after a year of treatment, but the cancer returned in 2022. Lobinger was among the most talented jumpers of his generation, first clearing 6 meters in 1997, a mark which was then equal 4th of all time, behind Sergei Bubka's 6 meters 14, Ockert Brits with 6:03, Igor Trandenkov 6:01, and tied with Rodion Gataulin and Maxim Tarasov, who later went higher. Lobinger was the world indoor champion in 2003 and a bronze medalist in 2006. He was also twice European indoor champion, 5 times World Championships finalist between 97 and 2007, and a 3-time European Championships medalist. As well as for his talent, Lobinger was also known for his occasionally over-the-top celebrations. He retired in 2012 after being offered a post as athletics trainer for German football club RB Leipzig, with which he worked till 2016. Rest in peace, Tim. US hurdler great Greg Foster passed away on 19 February, aged 64. Foster was diagnosed with amyloidosis in 2015, a rare disease which damages the heart, and recently underwent a heart transplant. Foster was the only athlete to win 3 consecutive world titles in the 110 hurdles in 1983, 87, and 91. He had also set the world indoor record over 60-meter hurdles in 1987 and won gold at the World Indoors in 1991. He was among the very best in the 110 hurdles for well over a decade and was in the top 12 for 18 consecutive years between 1974 and 1994. Greg Foster continued to coach through his illness. And in 2021, he was a guest on the Alpheus Track and Field show, produced by the same team as our program. Here is a short extract from that interview.
The first one I thought would be the easiest, but it turned out to be the most difficult because although I had, I think Willie Gault was in that race, and Arto Brigari from Helsinki was in that race. And it was in Helsinki, of course. The first one was in Helsinki, and ran pretty well the first 2 rounds. And then in the finals, I was leading the race most of the time. And I got to like the 8th hurdle, and I hit the 8th hurdle really, really hard. I thought I was going to fall and go down. But luckily, I was able to recover and finish and end up winning, not by a very big margin, of course, but I ended up winning that one. 4 years later, not like it is now, which every 2 years, 4 years later, I'm back in the same situation. I'll get an opportunity to defend my title. And at that time, we were in Rome, and I was ready for it. I think I was ready for it. Anyway, Bob Kersey was my coach, and he always said, when you step on the track, you're ready. I'm not going to let you compete unless you're ready to compete. So I knew I was ready to run.
Excuse me, who was your coach again?
Bob Kersey was my coach. Once I got out of UCLA, Bob Kersey became my coach. And then in Rome, I think Colin Jackson was my competition, I think, in Rome, if I'm not mistaken. He was a youngster at that time. He's a young guy coming up, but he was very good at that time. And I think I ended up winning that one. I can't remember the time, and then in 91, it was in Tokyo, and I had Jack Pierce, my teammate, and also not Colin, but Tony Jarrett. Tony Jarrett and I was going back and forth. We had a little rivalry going on during that year because he was running really well that year. Great competitions. I love those guys to this day. I just talked to actually one of my guys I ran against who beat me in the Olympic Games, Roger Kingdom, just last week. And I've talked to Tony Dees a couple weeks ago. So we keep in touch with some of these guys. I keep in touch with these guys. They call me and check on me and check on my health and everything and make sure I'm doing okay. We're like a big family now. So.
Rest in peace. And we cannot forget the victims of the earthquake in southern Turkey and northern Syria. An AIPS article a week ago quoted figures from Turkish news agency Anadolu Ajansi, saying that 92 athletes, as well as 6 coaches and 17 referees and officials from 15 different sports, none from athletics, and 21 journalists were among the, at the time, over 42,000 fatalities from the earthquake. So our heartfelt condolences for the victims and their families. Let's now look at upcoming events as we reach the end of our show. Tomorrow, 25 February, World Indoor Tour final in Birmingham. The following day, Osaka Marathon. From the 2nd to the 5th of March, European Championships in Istanbul. And huge congratulations to Turkey for going ahead with the organization of the event. On 10th and 11th March, NCAA Division 1 Indoor Championships in Albuquerque. 11 to 12 March, European Throwing Cup in Leiria, Portugal. On the 12th of March, Nagoya Women's Marathon. On the 19th of March, Zurich Marathon in Barcelona. And on the 25th of March, one of the great events in race walk, the Dudinska 50K in Slovakia. So we're now at the end of our program. It was great having Mutwiri with us on the show.
Yeah, it was great being in the show too. It was quite an enjoyable show and interesting topics. We can only pay our respects to those who have left us, and also remembering the victims of the devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. And we hope that we will have another great fortnight in the sport that we love so much.
Thank you, Mutwiri. It looks promising.
Yes.
And thank you all for watching. See you in 2 weeks on Love Athletics to look together at the highlights, comments, and analysis of what's been happening in our sport over the last fortnight. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao, Mutwiri.
Ciao, Anna.